Today we're going to talk about slope and writing equations of lines. And slope is defined as the rate of change over the steepness of the line. In general, the way that you probably think about slope is that it's rise over run. And we have a formula for slope. It's the y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. But oftentimes in geometry, we can again count and figure out our slope of our line. One thing, though, about talking about rise over run is I like to think about as you're coming from the left, if the line goes downhill, you're going to be dealing with a negative slope. I think that we can look at it in terms of the triangle as well, but we are going to notice the rise is what's going up and down, and the run is going right to left, left to right. So you don't necessarily have to use the formula. In fact, I don't oftentimes use the formula if I can count. But let's look at a couple of examples just to practice. And again, the nice part is on letter A is that we're given 2 points on this line. And what we can do is we can draw, oh dear, our triangle. Let's try one more time. Maybe a little bit better, but not much. Again, what the rule is that it's rise over run. When I look at this, I just say, well, 1, 2, 3, we run 3. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, we rise 7. But maybe what you think of, well, rise over run is what we're looking at. And our slope, the abbreviation for slope is m. And we went 7 divided by 3. And the nice thing is when we counted, we went right. Well, going right is going towards the positive. And we went up. We're going towards the positive. This is an uphill line. So this is a positive slope on this particular problem. In contrast here, on letter B, when we draw our triangle, and hopefully your triangles look better than mine. Again, 1, 2, 3, there's a rise. 1, 2, there's a run. Slope is abbreviated as m. So rise over run. But really what we did is we went down 3, and we went to the right 2. And down 3 means that we're going towards the negative direction. Honestly, the way that I think of this is I draw an arrow there. We're going downhill. Downhill means negative slope. Letter C, we don't have anything drawn in for this one, but we can draw it. And on this particular problem, negative 4, 5, and 2, 2. And once again, what we want to do is we want to find the slope of this line. And we'll draw in our triangle. Slope is defined as rise over run. We've got 1, 2, 3. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I believe that the OST is fine with 3 over 6. Perhaps you wrote 1/2. And the other thing about this, however, is coming from the left, we went downhill, so this is really negative 3/6 or negative 1/2. If that's too hard to remember, once again, we went down 1, 2, 3. So there's the rise. Downward is going to be the negative, and then we went to the right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Right is going towards the positive direction. Once again, hopefully not a new concept to you, because it's something that we really work on in Algebra 1 a lot. In fact, they're working on it right now. Point slope form. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. I do not think that this formula is provided to you on the OST. I need to check that again, but I do not think that this one is provided for us. But the nice thing about it is we're allowed to write our equations in this format. We don't have to do a lot of algebra to this. For example, when we want to write the equation of this line that has a slope of 2/3 and passes through the point -6,5, once again, our formula is y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Just a quick recommendation for you. I write that equation down every single time, so I don't have to sit there and memorize something later. And by the time I get done with my practice, I've written it so many times, I know what it is. That's a personal preference. I'm throwing that out there to you. But as we look at this particular problem here, slope. Slope has an abbreviation of m. Going to label that right there. -6 is going to be our x1, and 5 is going to be our y1. And we're going to fill those values into our formula. So the y1 is 5. The slope is 2/3. The x1 is -6. And in fact, if we finish this, it's y minus 5 equals 2/3 times x minus a -6. I'm told that the OST test accepts the answer in that format. Oftentimes what you see me do, however, and it's probably because I'm an algebra teacher, for the most part, is what happens when we have two negatives together? It becomes positive. So when we finish this problem, and again, the OST, to the best of my knowledge, takes that first answer. If you were in algebra class, they would probably want that second answer, because minus and negative is the same thing as plus a positive. Negative times negative is positive. So labeling, that's the key. Can you remember the formula? That's the second key. We're going to have to write the equation of a line that has slope of -4 and passes through the point 1, -12. Well, again, we look at these points here. Here's x1 and here's y1. Order paired, x, y. -4 is our slope, and we fill in those values. y1 is -12. M is -4. x1 is 1. And we can fill in the rest. It's y minus a -12 equals -4 times x minus 1. Again, to the best of my understanding, OST will take this answer in this format. Now, of course, we need to know what the equation is. But just as an aside, double negative once again. Y minus a -12 is the same thing as y plus 12 equals -4 times x minus 1. Which of the following lines has slope of 5/2 and passes through the point 16, -2? Well, first things first, as we look at this multiple choice question, our slope is here. And the slope is not going to help us eliminate any answers because all of these lines has a slope of 5/2. And then when we look at the rest of it, however, we've got our x1 here for 16 and our y1 for -2. It maybe is easier to fill in that formula of y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Because we've got the 5/2, which again, not going to help us in terms of our answer. But when we put in the 16 over here, and that's not in the right place, put it in the right place. 16 is the x1, and -2 is the y1. And then we can fix this up. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus 16. Well, in this particular case here, the minus a negative does need to be simplified a little bit. And minus a negative, like we've seen on the previous examples, is a plus. So here's our equation. And then we just need to match it up here. Y plus 2 equals 5/2 times x minus 16 is letter C. Another formula that hopefully you're very familiar with is the slope-intercept form, which is y equals mx plus b. B is the y-intercept. It's where the line crosses the y-axis. M is still the slope. Sometimes what I like to add in terms of an additional note is that you solve for y in that format whenever we're working with slope-intercept form. That's the key. An additional note if you would like to add. But let's take a look at a couple of examples here. It's 5x plus y equals 7. We want to write each of the following in slope-intercept form. Again, my little note of solve for y I hope helps. Because if we solve for y here, we're going to subtract 5x on both sides. And we end up with y equals negative 5x plus 7. But what we want to do now is we want to identify what is the slope in this equation and what is the y-intercept. This is y equals mx plus b. The slope of this line is the number in front of x when we solve for y. It's -5. A y-intercept is 7. And again, as an algebra teacher, I often write this as 0, 7. Same idea. On the next two, we need to solve for y. That's putting the equation into slope-intercept form. Y equals mx plus b. So we're going to add 6x to both sides. And we end up with 3y equals negative 6x plus 15. Divide everything by 3. And we get y equals negative 2x plus 5. 15 divided by 3 is 5. Negative 6 divided by 3 is -2. And once again, if you need to, y equals mx plus b. I do not think that that will be an equation that's provided for you. Consequently, if you don't know it already, then that's something I can again recommend that you write down every single time. And then by the time you finish your practice, hopefully you will know what it is, and you won't have to sit and memorize at some other point. The slope is the number in front of the x. The y-intercept, the b, is 5, which is 0, 5, when we graph it. On the last one, I'm going to get some fractions in there. That's okay. solve for y to put the equation in slope-intercept form. So we're going to add 3x to both sides. We get negative 7y equals 3x plus 28. I'm going to divide everything by 7. We want to get y by itself, in fact, not just 7, but negative 7. So we end up with y equals negative 3/7x. And 28 divided by negative 7 is going to be negative 4. Do you need to write the equation? Or do you know it already? Because this is y equals mx plus b. So when we identify, our slope is the number in front of the x when we solve for y. It's negative 3/7. The y-intercept is negative 4, which is 0, negative 4. Lastly, sometimes it's confusing when we should use point slope form, which is the y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1, and the slope-intercept form, which is y equals mx plus b. In general, what happens is when we're writing an equation, again, using point slope form when we're writing an equation, use slope-intercept form when we're graphing. When we write an equation, though, we need to be given the slope and a point to use the point slope form. So as we finish here, graphing a line, whenever we graph, we've got to put the equation in slope-intercept form. We can identify the slope. We can identify the y-intercept, and then we can draw the picture. To write this one, I'm just going to write the problem down one more time so that you can see it a little bit better. But slope-intercept form means to solve for y. We're going to subtract 3x from both sides, and we get 4y equals negative 3x times 20. Solving for y. 4 times y. We're going to undo by dividing. We get y equals negative 3/4 x times 5. And once we put it in slope-intercept form, we need to identify, well, what is the slope of this line? The slope of this line is the number in front of x when we solve for y, and the y-intercept is negative 5, which is 0, negative 5. With the y-intercept, start with b. B comes before m in the alphabet. So 1, 2, 3, 4, negative 5. And then our slope, rise over run. Down 3 because it's negative, to the right 4 because 4 is positive. And we went down 3 and to the right 4, but remember, we could also go the other direction. We could go up 3 to the left 4, up 3 to the left 4. And here is the graph of our line.